Okay, now we're good. Hello, everyone. Hope you are all having a lovely day. So, after Corona and car crashes, we are rejoined by Issa. Issa, do you want to tell
Uh,
everybody what happened recently?
Tell everybody what happened. I died and went to heaven and I came back. No, I just went through a few weeks of like a lot of like really hard stuff and
Series of unfortunate
confusion.
events.
Yeah, I was like driving to driving to church to play with the worship team, like not a rehearsal, like an actual event. And I drove through an intersection and someone thought it was a really smart idea to turn left. And they took out the front of my car. It's like if they had driven any later, they would have hit the door and probably could have been repairs that were able to be handled, but no, the radiator and all that stuff got it was horrendous. Jack, if you like edit this video, you can insert that disgusting picture that I sent. But
I don't know how to do
yeah,
that, but just picture like I think you described it pretty well. I think we have a picture in our
picture
heads of
a
just like
car that is perfectly fine, except the front left is like just it looked like Godzilla came out of nowhere and like
just
scraped
took a
it.
bite.
Yeah, just like yeah, that's kind of exactly how it looks. But there was that, and then I got this rental car, and jokes were cracked. It was a weird time, but it smelled like cigarette smoke. But I was again driving my own business, minding myself to church, minding my own business, driving myself to church, and the tire popped, and it looked like it went through a cheese grater. And because I had just gotten my car totaled in like a pretty scary crash, I was like freaked out, couldn't do anything, had no idea it was a tire because I was so nervous. And then I was unable to go anywhere. So, and then I got Corona.
Icing on the
But
cake.
it's fine. That was just like, yeah, and that was just a bunch of stuff like already on top and like other things that I'm just like not gonna share on YouTube. But
No,
like,
yeah.
yeah, that
I
was
remember
just a
literally
bunch. Yeah, it was just huh?
I was saying how when I made a joke in like my last vlog, when I
Oh.
was like, oh yeah, when I made a joke about driving into the post office, like obviously that didn't happen, but I remember she just texted me like too soon.
Too soon. Yeah, but
But
it was just a bunch of stuff that was like on top of like a big season of like what's going on. And so it was
yeah.
a lot of yeah, it was like a few weeks of like I kind of can't do anything other than figure out
It.
what yeah, like just recenter myself with God. And I did, and it was great. Like we're better now. I think most people at all times have at least one or two things under the hood that they're either dealing with or healing from. But it's better to like be in a place where you are impacted by something, but it's not
Mhm.
running your life. And so I'm just
No, of
glad that I'm out
course.
of the spot where it's kind of like running my life.
Mhm.
Much rather just be kind of impacted by that stuff. So I'm okay. I'm just like a little bit. It's time for some rest.
Absolutely. So what we thought would be kind of fun to do today. So we finished our discussion sort of kind of about love and we were talking and we were like what would be like we were trying to think of like a new discussion because I know we've had some recommendations about like thoughts and thinking and that is totally one that we are going to come back to. Because we literally have had so many conversations like recently about like thoughts and thinking. So that is definitely one that we are going to revisit. But seeing as we both start grad school in a few months, we were like, hey, wanna what would be a really good topic of conversation? Mental health. Because I don't know if you guys know this, but we both did our undergrad in like music, which is obviously very different than like what we're doing now. Um, I promise we've both had a little bit of experience in psychology, so we're not like going into it cold. Or at least I've had some experience. I don't know about you. So, no, I'm kidding. But
Wow.
um, no, we've honestly like the amount of times that we've like talked about this kind of stuff. Like we're ready, and you go to learn. So, but essentially, we just wanted to start a new series about mental health, mental illness, and kind of the whole debate around it, and just kind of like have discussions about it regarding Chris. That's my cell phone. Let me just turn off my ringer. Oh, it's Issa texting me. Just realized you haven't announced your acceptance yet. Oh, I sort of kind of did indirectly. I got into grad school, so like, yay.
Okay. Maybe we should like stop and pick a different topic before, like, in case you didn't. But if you did, okay.
Yeah, no. One of these days we'll like wear our shirts and like do a whole
Yeah,
revealing of where we're
I was
going.
like, what about the merch?
I know my merch is coming in. I literally have
I
it.
have merch. I should have
You
worn my
do?
merch. Yeah.
we'll pick a day to wear our merch. Once mine comes in, then we'll both wear them. We'll do like a
Mhm.
reveal of where we're going. I literally like
Part
have the website
two.
pulled
Like,
up. Part two. Um, but essentially today we thought it would be a good idea to do as like an introduction to this new segment on this series of Christian Convos, like literally Christian Convos. That's what we should call this, literally Christian Convos. Um, but today we thought it would be a good idea to kind of talk about why we decided to go into the mental health field, why we had such an abrupt switch from like music, mental illness. And so today we thought it'd be a good idea to kind of, like I just said 2 seconds ago, talk about why we kind of felt pulled in that direction, why we feel like it's an important topic. And yeah, so Issa, do you want to start us off and give us your story? Or not story, but just kind of,
my
what I'm saying.
story, my TED Talk. Get ready because that's all I do
Me too.
is
Dude,
TED
I love it.
Talk. Um, well, I've been paraphrasing this for like a bunch of summer application stuff. So,
Oh, I haven't even heard it, so I'm
um,
ready.
so I should be able to tell the story pretty succinctly and clearly because
Mhm.
it's like memorized now. But I start and like the beginning of Jack's story is like probably going to be almost like identical just because we started in the same major at the same school. But
Yeah.
I like started out in music school in music education, and I kind of picked that in high school. I didn't think about what I wanted to do really, other than the fact
Mhm.
that like, oh, I like this topic, and out of
Yeah,
music, like the most
exactly.
job guaranteeing field is music education. So if anyone's like watching this and thinking about college, don't do what I did and think about what's best. Think about what you want to do, because
Mhm.
it was ultimately very growthful. But I think a lot about what would have happened if I had switched, and I actually was very close to switching. So
We both
halfway
well, I
through,
actually did end up, but not really to what I wanted
yeah,
to.
you
Sorry,
did.
do you though? Yeah.
But you switched, like you did something like you switched from music education to like music business kind of thing. You
Yeah,
added other stuff to it, whereas I was thinking about
which I'm totally unqualified for. I'm not a businessman. I have soon found that out. But anyway, sorry,
yeah,
continue.
I was thinking about going into like a science. There was actually like some of the I'm almost like embarrassed about it because like I totally could have handled some of them. Like I kept myself away from nursing because I thought that it was like I thought because it was in the medical field, like there would be a lot of math, and I suck at math. So I kept myself out of that one and pre-physical therapy because I was like math. So the second one, maybe there is a lot of math in that, but and that one's like an 8-year ordeal. But
Yeah.
either way, I talked myself out of a heck of a lot of stuff for like no good reason. And I was like, okay, God, like you already called me to stay at this school, even when I was thinking about transferring. I was like this close. I got accepted into another one. But I was like,
Wait, that's news to me. I didn't actually know. We'll talk about that later.
okay, yeah, I was like literally, it was my freshman years before I knew you.
Oh, never mind. Yeah, we weren't friends yet.
Yeah, it was like I just felt God kind of calling me to like trust that and stay. And like at the time I had no idea why. Now I still don't fully know exactly why he had me stay. But I remember thinking a lot about that, and I was like, okay, I guess there's reason for me to stay in this major. And that was kind of around the time that I had befriended Jack, and like he was also kind of saying like I don't really like this. Like I don't know if this is for me. And we
Yeah.
both kind of were like investigating, well, like what are other like outlets? What are other like routes that we could take?
Mhm.
And I just stayed, and I was kind of like neutral to it. It was like, oh, I'm doing my class, I'm doing all my work, but I'm really living for like the friends that I'm making. And like the
Mhm.
that year it was like I went home every single weekend with one of
Yeah.
my besties. Um, who I haven't seen in a while, but junior year was like at the end of the fall semester, it just like tanked for me because I spent the entire semester like hating the like we kind of got to this like capstone thing where
Mm.
we were teaching finally. It wasn't student teaching, but we were teaching. And I just like couldn't do it. I like kept telling myself, I was like, it'll get better, it'll get better. But I'm just like, like this isn't good. I literally had a class. I had a class, that class, and then after every single week I met up for coffee with someone, and I just remember feeling like guilty every time I left because it was like we would see each other for like a good 2 hours, and I would always be like, I just spent like most of those 2 hours like complaining about that class. And like I remember thinking about that and kind of like being like, well, first of all, why do I feel the need to like get that. Like, I'm so frustrated by this class that like all I can do after is like vent and like get
Mhm.
annoyed about it. And like I was just not passionate about the work. The teacher was so like she was so kind and sweet, but I just felt like she was like the way that she was like pushing me was like I should be excited about this. Like I should be
Mhm.
glad to be pushed if I'm excited about this topic. And I was just noticing I felt like I was the only one who was so dispassionate about the
Mhm.
whole thing. And that like really I was really reflecting on that, especially because my semester just like tanked. Like story for another time, but like I actually missed the final. And I took it again, but I ended up going into that class and I said to my professor, I was like, I don't know how else to say this. Like I completely slept through my alarm because I was up till 4 in the morning last night, like the past 3 days doing work for this class.
Mhm.
I was like, so you're either gonna have to like fail me or let me take it some other time. And I think she like saw like the eye bags and like could tell just how like run into the ground I was by everything. And she was like, okay, like I understand. I think she like kind of caught that and was like, yes, you can just take it now. And I was okay, but like I went home soon after that and I was like, this is so intensely wrong. And like I
Mhm.
can't ignore it this time. Like before it was just I'm gonna go through the motions, but
Yeah.
like this time I was like,
If
no,
you're
like
that, like, unpassionate about what you're literally going to school for, you
yup.
know?
Yeah, and like I had these thoughts where I was like, there was like one specific classmate of mine where, and like, I'll give her a different name. I'll say like Maria. I don't know why Maria, but I was like really reflecting on like how like excited she would get to like present her projects and like talk about like what we were learning. And I was like, when I look at like Maria and her work, I'm like, that's the kind of teacher that like I would want my kids to go to music
Yeah.
school or to go and have music class with, not someone like me who's like dispassionate about it.
Mhm.
And I had like a really emotional conversation with like another professor about that. And like he made me cry because it was so sweet. But long story short, like I kind of couldn't get rid of that of like I just would not want to be in a class with a professor or teacher who's not truly really passionate about what they're teaching about, um, because that's what'll help you learn the best. But rather with people like those classmates who are really passionate about it, and I'm like, this just doesn't feel like something that I could
Mhm.
put my life to. And I was like, well, that's not good because I'm more than halfway through my undergrad degree. And I was just really like really praying about this because a lot of other stuff had like kind of affected me that semester. And I just like it kind of tanked in like every way possible that it could have. And so I went home and I was just like desperate to just spend time with God and like kind of let him pull me back up to the surface
Mhm.
and like give me just a way out of this like depression, I guess, that I was kind of
Yeah.
in. At least phase of, bout of depressive emotions. And um he kind of I have been describing it as he picked up data points like throughout that he'd given me throughout my entire life that didn't make sense at the time really, or just kind of stood out in their own right, and I didn't see as part of a larger picture. He kind of like gathered all of those pieces of information like that, put them all in one place, and was like, okay, like let's solve this math problem, which is kind of like funny because that's like how I always had my dad help me with math. He was like, okay, I've put the problem together for you. Now you need to try and solve it. And so that's kind of, I felt like I was just like sitting on the bathroom floor and he kind of like put it all in one place. And I like thought it over and God helped me solve this mental math problem. And I arrived at this solution of youth ministry, which was like, whoa, what? And I remember it made so much sense. I was like, literally my favorite day of that year was like buying kids dinner, like kids who were from, it's hard to explain, but they were through a program that like does outreach to lower socioeconomic,
Mhm.
um kind of like kids from, I'm like struggling over my words, kids from a lower socioeconomic area.
Yeah, like
And
low
so
income areas.
they had like they were the kids who would like kind of struggle from time to time to like get their own lunch through
Mhm.
school. And they would have to go to schools with like less opportunities just because they were from the area that they were from, and that's not their fault. And so they got the chance to be a part of this cool ministry. And one of
Mhm.
the things that this ministry did was bring them into some local schools, and they had them come to our school that day. And so some of us got together to like just buy them lunch and talk to them for a while. And that was like literally at the end of the year, I was like, I think that was my literal favorite day of the year, was just
Mhm.
hanging out with kids, like talking to them about whatever the heck they wanted to talk about,
Mhm.
and like seeing them get excited. They like literally were walking down the street like chanting Chick-fil-A. They were like doing, like the stomp stomp clap, like making a beat just because they were so excited about Chick-fil-A. So I was like just thinking about stuff like that, like instances about how like my heart had been just like so fulfilled by like being in ministry to kids.
Mhm.
And that was just like one of a zillion different examples. And I was like, that makes so much sense. And suddenly I
Mhm.
had like a completely different trajectory to my life, and like was just ready to go back. And so, long story short, because there's a lot of stuff that's happened between then. I've been talking for so long.
Mhm.
Um, Between then and now, there God has kind of been like revealing more of what that looks like, my like ministry of youth ministry. And as of late, he's kind of like revealed to me the kind of kids that I feel like best equipped and like most called to work with. I don't even want to say work, but just to like be with. Um, and then as of recently, obviously, he was like, well, I'm growing this passion for mental health in you. And like he kind of opened my eyes to some of the really, like, people have been describing mental health as like an epidemic recently. I don't know if like you've ever heard people mention that, but it's like I don't necessarily know too much of why they call it that, but I know I can see why, because a lot of people have been more like honest about their struggles, and it
Mhm.
is really affecting a lot of younger people. And so I've just been like through my opportunities with like two Bible conferences that I've worked with over the summer, and a good amount of time in Young Life. Good as in like not even that much time,
Mhm.
but just some time in those three ministries, and then with the people that I've been able to do ministry with through those things. um, I've kind of had my eyes open to like the unique way that kids like connect with the gospel, and the unique way that they struggle with things like that. And then, just various like I've seen kids like struggle through friendships. Like I've had kids open up to me about like family, their tough relationships within their family, and like just not
Mhm.
knowing what to do and like where to go for help. And so stuff like that. Um, and then just, a whole lot of other stuff that's just two drops in the bucket of how your mental health can be affected by your life.
Mhm.
Um, and it's so unique for so many kids. It's like everyone's struggle is different. And I feel like God just kind of opened my eyes to that and developed like a very big passion in me for like helping kids find the gospel and like Jesus as the one true remedy for whatever it is that they may be sitting through. And then also kind of as a secondary thing, like their parents or like their families or whoever, they spend the most time with, and connecting that all to it. So all, that whole like story spans over 3 years now. But it's like a fun one, and it's cool to see how God is like blessing that opportunity. He's kind of like, just today I got an email saying that the school that I'm at wants me for an interview, which if they grant me the position of grad assistantship, it would pay for my entire tuition.
Holy
So yeah.
crow.
Yeah,
Dude,
so I
jump on
finally got
that.
an email about that today, and I'm like, yes, I can interview with the dean. Anything for you, Beyonce. Um, so yeah, that hopefully will come through. But it's
That's
that
incredible.
yeah, that being pointed out, not to like brag, but to just say that like
Okay.
it's cool to see how God is like blessing
No,
this.
absolutely.
Yeah, and I'm like trying to step out in faith. So anyway, I said TED Talk, and that's what you got. So amen. Your
No,
turn.
that's amazing. No, I think that's incredible, and I think that, it just goes to show how, man, oh my gosh, what's that verse? I'm really bad at knowing the exact words by heart, but I think it's like, a man planeth his way, but the Lord
Yeah,
directeth his steps. And I think that's a really good example of that. And I
that's
mean,
a
I think
proverb.
for me too, like, I think just goes to show that like so many things can change no
Yeah.
matter where you're at. Because for me, I mean, you know, I started out also music education, which I don't think everyone knows on here. And I, originally chose music education because I knew I wanted to be in some sort of helping people thing, helping people career. I was deciding between either English education or music education when I was in high school, because I really love literature. Um, and my senior year of high school, I did an English internship, with one of my teachers, my
What
AP
about
Lit
all
teacher. I
that?
did it. Yeah, I know. Wait, have we talked about that?
We have, you just haven't
Yeah.
mentioned it in so long. So
Yeah, no. Well, I did, and I eventually chose music because music was such a big part of my high school experience. I was in marching band. I was in it in college too. I was drum major. Music was always such a big part of my life and still is. And when I was in college, I quickly realized that I love and appreciate music, but in terms of having that be my career, like you can still really love and appreciate something without having it be your entire livelihood. And I think that's what I was going through. And so my sophomore year, I didn't know
same.
why. Exactly. And my sophomore year, I was like, I like music. I like teaching, but I don't like teaching music. And I, you know, wanted to be on a more Christ-centered path, if that makes sense. And not saying that like you don't have to be a like minister or a pastor to be in a Christ like serving position,
You don't have
like
to be
there's
like an
so many.
overseas missionary either, which I feel like
Exactly. You
a
don't
lot
need
of
to be
people.
like, and that's something that I've really begun to really realize and appreciate and kind of accept, because when I was a sophomore in college and I really began to like get more into my faith, I was like, I need to be a like pastor or a missionary in order to serve the Lord. And if I'm not, I'm doing something wrong. And so
If I'm
I,
not literally martyred, I've done
yeah, no,
something
literally, but that was my
wrong.
mentality because that was when I
No.
had a little bit of lordship in there. But I kind of I my sophomore year I decided to switch, and I unfortunately to keep my scholarship I had to kind of stay in the music field. So I went to music business, and I was like, okay, like this is fine behind the scenes stuff. I did a music internship, like a music. I interned at a theater in college to do like marketing and stuff, and I actually really liked that. But theater is dead right now. Every like music management job is like non-existent. So my degree is like obsolete right now. Um, and so basically I was like, okay, this is gonna like I didn't know it at the time that this was going to happen, but I liked music and behind the scenes stuff, but really the only job that I really would have wanted in the music management industry was to like work in a theater doing marketing. And I was like, okay, well, if that's the only thing I want to do, there's only so many places that you can do that. And then my junior year, I don't know why, but somehow my anxiety spiked. Like, Issa, you remember me all the times I called you, like, over the summer. I don't know why, but the summer going into my junior year, my anxiety just went insane and no one could console me. I thought I blasphemed the Holy Spirit. I thought I committed the unpardonable sin. I thought I did anything that, like, any loophole, I thought I did it. And I could not be consoled at all.
Yeah, it
Not
was
by,
like bad before, but then you were like kind of pretty cool about it. But then it came back.
no, exactly. Like, I was always like anxious, but it reached a whole different level and it was
And it
obsessive.
was in a different way too, yeah.
And that's the thing, like, no matter I knew and it's so weird because I knew that something was wrong. I was like, I've had anxiety before and I don't know why it's so bad. And like no one could console me. Like, no matter what minister, we had our campus minister talk to me, priests talk to me, not priests, but like people in high positions in the church, YouTubers, anyone, literally, I was just all I was doing was seeking out approval. And no matter how much approval I sought out, it didn't work. And that's why I'm so passionate about that. That's why I literally made a whole video about it. And that's why, like I said before, I'm not going to respond to those comments
Right,
anymore that are
right.
just repetitive because I was there and it sucked. And it didn't do anything and it only negatively affected me.
Mhm.
And so
It
eventually
was like
once I
one of
was
those
in it,
temporary helps, right?
it's a temporary, like I said, I compare it to a pill, like a drug. Um, and then my not sophomore year, my spring of junior year, I was like, you know what, I want to take a psychology class because I just want to better understand this. I'd gone to a counselor, and some of the things that they were saying were really helping. And then I took a psychology class and I just felt like so many things that I didn't understand were making so much sense, like false memories and clinical, psychology disorders, learning the science behind it and what I was going through, like to be confronted with what exactly it is that you're going through on paper and having a name for it changed everything. And that is why I'm so passionate. And that's a video that I want to do in the future, is just talking about like
Mhm.
label OCD and anxiety and all that stuff for what they are. And it
Yeah,
will
like you're
help you so
not
much.
crazy,
You're not
especially when
like,
you
it's
see the
literally
science behind it.
exactly. And it also helps you to not think that like, because I know people are like, how do I, we'll get into that later. But
Mm.
essentially, I just had such a passion for understanding mental illness, mental health, and like doing any sort, like just learning about the brain. And I remember this one thing that I kind of realized, and I was like, why are not more people talking about this? Like, we love to talk about the flesh is fallen, the flesh is fallen, our flesh can't be perfect. So then why on earth is the one part of our flesh, the brain, expected to be perfect? Like whenever people were like, oh, mental health isn't real, Christians don't struggle with depression or anxiety or whatever,
Just
I was
thought of
like,
our
okay,
next
but
topic.
that's still an organ in the body that is fallen. So yes, it can malfunction just like any other organ can. Like, you know what I'm saying? And that's something that I really wanted to pursue further. And my spring of junior year, I decided to like add a psych minor, and it was like one of the best decisions ever. My whole senior year, all I did was learn about psychology. I had like maybe one music class, I think, and the rest was literally just like psychology, I can't talk statistics, and uh, you know, developmental psychology, cognition, and all that kind of stuff. And it was awesome. It was amazing. And I was like, wow, this is stuff that I'm really passionate about. I loved learning about it. And it just made so much sense to be in that field, because I just want to like help people who are also going through what I went through, because it is awful. And so I feel like there's a lot of misconceptions and like preconceived notions about mental illness, mental health, and all that kind of stuff, especially in the church. And so I really want to kind of help break some of those down, because I think a lot of people, it's very misunderstood. And that's kind of why I feel like it's important to talk about it, because I think people, if you say something along the lines of like sometimes, and not everywhere, you know, I've been watching, church that I go to online is like extremely understanding of mental health, mental illness, but
Ooh, the
some
church that
churches I
you go
know
to
that,
online, my church.
yeah, no, I literally watch Jesus Church online. But I know that some places that's not the case. Some places it's just pray harder or just have more faith. And if you mention mental illness or mental health, you're like seen as some like crazy, loose Christian who doesn't
Mm.
have any faith at all.
I'm cutting
And
you off to say that, like, that's so a part of it, like,
mhm,
pushing yourself in your faith and, like, praying and, like, asking the Lord to, like, meet you in your healing process is, like, the part of it, and, like, that's what
mhm,
I've always tried to, like, make the first point of attack, but, like, the problem arises when we think that, like, when we throw out stuff like the help that cognitive behavioral therapy could bring, or like in some people's cases, medication could bring,
mhm,
because sometimes that's what's truly, truly needed, and God can
yeah.
work through that.
And
Sometimes,
God, and that's the thing, is that God
yeah,
definitely, I believe, can work through that. And
exactly.
like I
Sometimes
said,
your
like,
prayers will lead you, like he will put on your heart, like through your prayers and through your study
yeah,
and fellowship, to like go seek out
absolutely.
cognitive CBT. Like my friends were the ones who were like, maybe you should like talk to a counselor. Like it could really help.
Mhm.
So, and yeah, God has worked through my counselor. She's great.
Yeah,
So, yeah,
and
but
that's the
anyways,
thing, is that, like, no, you're fine, and I was saying, like, that's exactly what it was, like, God was working, like, there are times in which I would see God, like, in my psych class, like, I would see God in, certain things that I was learning, like, there were times in which I felt like God was using psychology to teach me something, and, like, developmental and behavior, like, it just is so interesting, and like I said, like, I think the most important thing with getting better is, having God in there, and that's why I, like the idea of incorporating God's word with, counseling. I will say, like, the degree that I am pursuing right now, it is at a Christian school, but it is a clinical counseling degree. So it's not like a biblical counseling degree. But at the same time, like, I absolutely 110% believe that, like, if anyone were to ever come into my office or my practice whenever that day is, if that day ever comes, um, then, and they're a Christian, I 110% will be using God's word, like, as well. The thing is that, like, it's like I said, they go together. I think that you need aspects of both in order to, and the thing is that everyone's case looks different. Some people might only need the biblical, some people might really need the medical. And so, I think it's not a one size fits all. And I say that so much, but that's the truth, because I think with a lot of situations like mental health, or, mental illness, or just like life stuff, a lot of people think that there's a right and a wrong way to specifically address every single person. And I think that with something like mental illness, that's like not the case at all, because everyone looks different when with like their symptoms and what they're going through. And that's why I know, again, to make a long story short, basically, yeah, no, I know how much it sucks to experience, mental illness, and to go through garbage mental health, and how important it is to address it. And so that's why I wanted to study it and help others who have been in that
Yay.
boat.
Just actually, so this is like on topic but off topic. I'm so curious because we're literally on camera right now. I think it'd be so fun to come back and is your degree 2 or 3 years? Because mine was 3.
I think mine is two.
Okay, mine is 2 plus it tacks on this like internship
It might be
thing.
two and a half.
So,
I need to
okay.
double check it because I have to register. I literally have to, thank you for reminding me, I have to register for classes. I also have to buy that shirt. I'm so mad. I literally have the thing pulled up with like, all I have to do is enter the credit card information. And I literally was like, oh crap, wait, I have to.
I do that too. I chicken out right at the
Right at
credit
the
card
last
thing.
second,
Or
I
like I see the
know. I'm like, do
shipping
I really
calculated
need
and I'm like,
this? Like,
$2. No. And then I have to
yeah,
like pray on it for
dude,
um
no, for sure.
we're both like we're like too frugal with our money. But anyway, I was thinking, I guess it doesn't matter how long the degree is, but whenever like we're both done, it'd be so fun to like go back and like watch this number one, just be like, oh, like I wish we knew this, that, and the other thing at the
For
time.
real,
We'll like
yeah.
we'll have like our framed paper like on the wall.
That's
um
yeah, no, I agree.
but I'm thinking, I'm so curious because I don't think you've ever actually said, you may have, but I've like already been thinking, because I'm like reading as much as I can about like
Mhm,
stuff. And I'm noticing that like I'm finding specific interests. Sorry, my throat like had something in it.
mhm.
I'm already noticing like specific interests in terms of like what like
You wanna do?
yes, I don't want to say like what is, but like I think my counselor has explained that like she spent a little bit of extra time after getting her LPC exam done and like
Mhm.
becoming a licensed professional
Yeah,
counselor.
that's what I definitely plan on
She
pursuing.
spent some extra time getting a certificate in like in addiction counseling,
Mhm.
which allowed her to like take on patients that needed help with like
Yeah,
an alcohol addiction, or like if there was still healing from like a drug addiction.
absolutely.
Yeah, and so like there are things like that that you need
For different
extra
types
training
of
for, like
specialties, yeah.
yes, and like an LMFT is another one. And so I'm
Mhm.
like thinking, I'm like already thinking about like what I want to do, or
Yeah.
like what I might want to do. And so
Mhm.
I was like, ooh, what if like I say it and then like Jack says what he is like thinking right now?
Oh,
It'd be
and then
so much
see where
fun to
we
like
end up
go back,
later
yeah,
on.
and see, did I take that route? Like, how did it
Yeah.
go? And like if I took a totally different route, like, wow, it's funny to see. Like, so
Yeah.
anyway, do tell because I don't even
Yeah. So I plan on getting an LPC, which is a licensed professional counselor, getting that certification. And I want to get 2 other certifications specifically. I would like to get one, the biblical counseling certification, which you can take a few classes for, because since I am getting the secular degree, well, not secular degree, but like I am getting the like, the clinical degree, I would like to have a biblical certification,
yeah.
so that I can technically by law incorporate that into my practices. And then I would also like to specialize in specifically I would say like anxiety disorders, not specifically generalized anxiety as GAD, but I would like to do the sect of anxiety disorders like OCD, like GAD, like PT, not necessarily PTSD, but like anxiety disorders as a
Mhm.
whole, I guess you could say. Um, I know that some people specialize in, like you said, like, eating disorders and
Yeah.
PTSD is I think another, or addiction. I know that's a big one. And marriage and family, marriage and family, marriage and family
LFMD.
counseling. But I plan on doing specifically anxiety disorders and biblical counseling.
I
It
feel
I
like that
know that's
could.
like a lot of schooling, but no, the first step would be to get the licensing. That's number
Well,
one.
yeah, yeah. That's what we're both like automatically doing. I feel like I can see you doing that well.
What about you?
Because like I've been with you through your own struggle. Well, at least
Well,
through a big
exactly.
part of it, because you were in sort of like different stages before you met me, but
Yeah,
still
well, you met me at my prime.
at my prime,
Well,
my
not
anxiety.
met me, but you knew me at my prime when I was like could not function, and I was just like
I feel like that's
constantly.
just a sign of like healing from it though, is when you can like look back on it and be like, ha ha, like
No, well,
not
exactly, and
like
that's the thing is that like it's
not
so
like
weird to like
insecurity laughing, but like I'm laughing or like I'm making light of
because I'm
this
glad
because
it's
it's like,
over.
yeah, like I can acknowledge that like that was such a thing for me, like it was
Hmm.
such a struggle, but like
Yeah.
okay, we're good
I
now.
literally felt so bad. I remember literally being like, thank you for dealing with all my I like really want to send something to like our old campus minister because he was so patient with me. The amount of times that I would sit that man down to have coffee with him, like, and just be like, I think I'm unforgiven. Okay, Jack, what'd you do now? I did that. Like, that is literally how that would go. And that's why
He got
I
away with
like,
that fast. He could make it work.
yeah, I know. So yeah, no, I know how much that is not a fun place to be in and how like I know what those symptoms look like. So at least what
Empathy
some of
is
them do
so
make sense.
important too. And so like when you go through something similar to what you're helping someone through, it's like automatically you're like 70% more understanding and like more able to help them. So
Mhm.
like you counseling someone with anxiety would probably yield much better of a result than me, because like we could have the same training, like we could
Mhm.
literally take all the same classes. But if you went through something at least similar and I didn't,
Yeah.
like you automatically already will have
And that's one thing they do
more like
ask you on
relatability.
applications.
Which is, oh yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
exactly. So I
Yeah.
don't,
And what about you? What do you want to do?
I'm like less solid as of now, and I'm also trying to like, I'm like asking this question to you and like myself, but then at the same time, I'm like, a man plans the steps, but the Lord is
No, exactly. But that's like what I would love to see. Like I said, I mean, I always say like if we're still here, but like for real, if we are still here, I would like to see what we end up doing,
yeah.
you know?
But I really liked, I had a friend of mine who I actually haven't talked to in a good bit. She was talking to me a little while ago. It was like this past fall. She brought up Romans 12:2, which is the but don't be transformed by, or don't be conformed to this world, but be transformed by the renewing of your mind, blah blah blah, like in Christ Jesus. I don't have it memorized word for word. Um, but it's that verse. A lot of people know it. She showed it to me in a different angle, and she was like, shouldn't the transforming of your mind be the conforming of your will to God's? And she kind of phrased it in such like a better way than that. But it really got me thinking, and I've like thought of that verse like so much in that way since, in the way that like if we're just like really on top of our game and praying like, okay, God, like
Hmm.
this is what I want. Like C.S. Lewis framed it this way in his book Letters to Malcolm. You can't lie to God because like he knows your
No,
heart.
exactly.
Yeah, so like don't lie and say, oh, like I don't actually want A, I want B, because he knows that you
Yeah,
want
you can be
A.
like, I
So
want this, but if it's not the right thing, then obviously don't send me there, you
yeah,
know?
so that's what C.S. Lewis's prayer was like, okay, admit to God, I really want this
Hmm.
thing. Like I'm really hoping that this is what happens, but I'm nervous that it's not in your will. And like, I want to do your will more than I want my own desires. So like, please help me confirm
Absolutely.
that. And then my friend, she kind of brought that verse up and was like, well, that's gotta be part of what, Paul was referring to when he
Yeah.
wrote that verse was
I
like,
think that
if
definitely,
we,
yeah.
yeah, like if we stay on top of that prayer and like ask him specifically to like conform our will to his, like he'll start like the things that we want will start to become what God wants. So
Absolutely.
yeah, it's like I don't want to, plan my whole way out, but like this is where I'm hoping. I
Yeah.
I think just because of the youth ministry angle, like so far I'm really, really leaning towards like youth trauma counseling. And so
Oh.
like I would really, really feel excited about like middle school, high schoolers coming in
Mhm.
not knowing how to deal with, hey, this is something that's really, messing with my heart about my family at home. Like, I don't know what to do. Um, you know, a lot of kids have stored up anger. A lot of kids don't realize that they've been, conditioned in one way that's, not healthy. And then a lot of kids are making sense, like when they reach our age or like high school, they're making sense of like it, not injuries, but they're making sense of like the church
Yeah.
experiences that they grew up. I really like the idea of helping kids heal through negative experiences of
Mhm.
the church
And
and
that's a
like
lot of, like,
seeing.
developmental psychology, which I think is
Yes,
really cool.
exactly.
Mhm.
Exactly. I really like the idea of helping kids heal from those things and then seeing Jesus like in the right light. So that, and then I kind of like the idea of like getting like becoming after becoming an LPC. I like the idea of like maybe doing going for an LMFT
Mhm.
certification because I like the idea of counseling like marriages too, but
Marriage and family? No, I'm
more
kidding.
specifically, I like the family aspect because
Mhm.
kids factor into that. Because I really like the idea that like you've probably heard the teaching that like um teaching about Jesus like starts in the home. And so like it's different obviously if kids are coming in and like their parents aren't faithful, but
Yeah.
if a whole family came in like seeking to work through whatever it is. It'd be really, really, I would really, really like the idea of like not just addressing where the kids are at, but like also helping the
Mhm.
parents know where, how to help their kid and like how to understand their kid. Because a lot of times the parents would be great at at helping their kid through this, but they just don't
Yeah.
understand. And it's like the last little push they need is like a counselor who's kind of like out, who's not in that circle, who's unbiased. So like I sat in on a class at my school for it was like a marriage and family focus class and I left. I was like, this is like a second year class and I'm
Mhm.
so not cut out for it yet, but like that was so cool.
Yeah.
So yeah, that's kind of what I'm thinking now. So
Mhm. No, that's
hopefully,
awesome.
hopefully we can look back on this and be like,
Either laugh or be like, "Yeah," you
yeah, right.
know?
Like it's so weird. We took a different way, or like,
Yeah.
I'm
No,
glad
I would
I'm
really
glad it
like
went
to see
well.
where it goes because I'm always, I think it's funny because I mean, like we said, we went into undergrad thinking we're gonna be music teachers when we graduate, and then we came out and we're doing like the complete opposite. Um,
Mhm,
so no, yeah, well, I'm so excited to see where this goes. Both
mhm.
where we end up counseling and also this discussion. Next week will be we don't have a topic for it yet, but it'll definitely be surrounded, oh
Maybe
my
like
gosh,
why it's
surrounding
important for
mental health.
Christians.
What?
I was gonna say maybe why it's important for Christians, but if you're in the
Ooh, no,
comments, if
yeah,
you're
there you
watching
go.
this,
Our
you're
next
watching this, suggest a topic, and if you are thinking about counseling or in counseling or did if you're thinking about counseling or in it, or if you're in a counseling like program like we are, share your experiences.
yes. You're so
Tell
much
us
better at
why
ending
it
these than I
started.
am. I'm so awkward whenever I end videos because I do the same thing every time. I'm like, if you like it, prayer request. Whereas like this, you're very well thought out. So yeah, no, what Issa said, if you, I'm probably not even pointing to you, whichever one. Um, if you yeah, no, totally, if you're interested in counseling or if you have done counseling, definitely let us know below. And next week we were thinking of talking about why it's important for Christians, or if you have another topic, totally let us down below because like I said, this is why we're here, Christian Convos. We're literally having Christian Convos discussions and just they're discussions.
It wasn't condos until I was here.
Yeah, literally, pretty much. um but yeah, no, it was so nice to do this. Thank you so much, Issa, for being back. We are back on our A game. And yeah, hope you guys have a lovely
Maybe
rest of
like
your day. And oh, what?
I said maybe like B game. At least
Right.
me.
Yeah, hope you guys have a lovely rest
Great
of your day.
freeze. I might get a new car soon. It's fine.
Oh.
I'll show pics if I
Ooh,
get a new
yeah, no,
car
next time we'll
soon.
like if she has a new car by then, we'll just do a little like reveal over the phone.
I need
But
divine intervention.
but yeah, hope you guys have a lovely rest of your day. And as always, God bless.